camp was like, I have to tell you just to start with that if your child was with us, they were a blessing to us. In very different ways for each child. Some of them were a blessing before 7 a.m. And others were a blessing once they had their coffee. Yeah. We had a great time with all of our kids this week. They were a blessing to us, not just us being able to be a blessing to them. And I think I speak for all of the counselors in saying that we also benefit from that week, not just from the messages that are preached, but from the opportunity we have to build relationships with each of these kids who is just so precious to us. And that we thank the Lord for the opportunity to be able to minister with each and every one of them. And so campers, if you're here tonight, if you are a camper or a counselor, if you would just go ahead and make your way down. I know most of you are already down here in this front section. There are a few of you scattered. If you could come on down and join us. And I understand tonight, and you should know too, not all 69 of our campers are here tonight, and there's a good explanation for that. That's because of the fact that a good number of these kids are kids that we get either a one-time shot with them at camp during the year to make an impact, or they're kids that we might only get a chance to see them on Sunday morning only because their families aren't involved here in our church. Those are the kids, yes, and some of them come only on Wednesday. We've got a few that we have that only come Wednesday. But those are the kids who really need camp the most. And so even though not all of those are represented here tonight, I want you to be aware of those. I was doing some calculating in my head, and out of the kids that we had that made confessions of faith, 5 of those were ones whose grandparents sent them to camp. So if you're a grandparent who sent a child to camp, know that you make a difference when you do that. You have an opportunity to make an impact in your grandchild's life. And I know that many of our kids were able to go because of the help of either a church member that contributed to help them with some of their costs, or through an extended family member or something, because let's face it, if you have more than one kid going to camp, that's a chunk of money. And it is a commitment. But it's a commitment that thankfully people are willing to make on behalf of these kids. We don't take that lightly because we know that that's an investment you were making, and God knows that you've made that investment. God will honor you for it. But in a way like that I don't know that I've ever recalled, we have had just a huge number of decisions that were made among our kids this year at camp. And I praise the Lord for it. I don't want to tell you all of their decisions. I want to let them give them the opportunity to share with you some of those decisions. So what we'll do, we'll just start with our front row, and we'll work through from there. So if you are a camper tonight, we're going to give you the opportunity for you to share. And what I want you to do is this. I want you to share at least one thing that you got out of the message from camp. And then you can also share about what your favorite thing was at camp, or a good memory you have from camp. How about that? So we'll leave that to you. If you want to add more to it, you go right ahead. Put some icing on the cake. So Liz, let's start with you.
One thing I got out of the message at camp was he was talking about how the Lord gives us joy when we're saved, and how we'll be the best girlfriend or boyfriend or best friend at school, or like best student, but when we get home we treat our parents terribly and we leave like our joy on the doorstep. That kind of spoke to me because sometimes you're not in the best of moods, or sometimes people treat their parents like that. So that's something I got out of camp. Oh, and a funny story I got out of camp. It's all too big. A funny story I got out of camp was my friends went canoeing, but there was an odd number of us, so they went on the canoe, and I just sat there because I was like, forget it. And the lifeguards, they looked at them because they thought they were going to flip the canoes, and the lady was like, I can't wait to yell at them when they flip the canoes. I was like, do y'all just wait here all day? She was like, yeah, basically. I was like, oh, wow, I see what they're paying you for.
All right, Ellie, come on up here. Why don't you start with a fun memory you had from camp?
I guess a few fun memories were like in the Gaga ball pit. We all played around, except we all busted our knuckles open, so that's not fun. I guess one really fun thing was I was walking around with a whole bunch of my friends and just talking, or to shooting movies and stuff, and that was fun.
Ellie, what is something that you got out of the messages this week?
Wednesday night really spoke to me. He talked about how we may not live till later, and how we need to make a decision to give our lives to Christ and be all in for it and committed. And he used Ruth and Orpah and for an example, and showed us how Naomi gave them options to leave, but they didn't, and Ruth didn't, and so that helped me realize that you need to be following.
Second brother, stand up and make a line. Chloe, what is one thing you got out of the messages at camp?
When on Wednesday when Brother Prater said God was limitless, He has no limitations. Some things.
Okay, what was your favorite memory?
Like Gaga Ball.
Gaga ball was a big deal. Gaga ball is kind of like dodgeball, but contained and from the waist down, which means that in the process you can't pick up the ball, but when hitting it off the ground, if you see bloody knuckles around, that's what it's from. We didn't hit the kids over the knuckles. It's from Gaga ball. Kate, do you want to share? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
You want to start with the memories?
yeah.
Go ahead and start with the memories.
It was the morning chapel, and everybody runs to the lunch line to try to get there first, and I fell. It was really funny.
That's kind of why they say on the way out of chapel, no running. But y'all who are parents know how well those things absorb sometimes, right? So share with us one of the things that you got out of the messages this week.
One of the messages that really stuck out to me was Thursday night, because it was mostly about what Jesus is to us. He's a great friend, he's loving, he's caring. They had all the counselors and adults stand up, and they just started listing things. It was kind of makes you think wow, that is our God. He is every single one of those things.
Katie, I'm going to make this easy on you. How about this?
Okay.
Can you tell us what your favorite magic trick was that Brother Russ James did when he came up for Thursday?
The one where he pulled the dirty diaper out of the box.
Do you remember what that was supposed to represent? What he was teaching about with that?
About magic?
About magic. But Brother Russ, was that an illustration of sin? Or what was that illustrating?
And how to choose friends.
How to choose friends. So we don't want friends that are like the dirty diapers. All right. And Katie, did you have a favorite meal at camp?
Yes,
What was it?
the hamburger.
The hamburger. That is an all-time favorite at camp, is the hamburger. Thank you, Katie. Would you start by sharing your favorite memory?
Okay, I think my favorite thing was just spending time with my close friends and having fun.
Okay. And what's something you got out of the messages this week?
That God is the perfect friend and that you should never leave Him.
Thank you. Tiffany, you want to share something first you got out of the messages?
Oh, well, I came prepared for this, so
There we go.
I thought we were supposed to, write a bunch, but I did. Okay, well, I put a lot of thought into this, everyone, just saying. Okay, well, I just want to start by saying thank you to my parents for making this possible for me to go, and also a thank you to the parents that made camp possible in the first place. You're all greatly appreciated. I loved Timberline. Okay. I love seeing the changes of people and their hearts around me. I think the main thing I took out of camp was that God uses people's limitations and that I also carry a very special and powerful light inside of me. See, God gave us our imperfections to show the world that even with our flaws, we can still do our purpose in which we are created for. That no thing is too small to overcome through Christ. If God left something out of you, then you don't need it for what He needs you for. Quit saying, I'm not, enough. Because Christ sees you as perfect in His image. For everything you aren't, the great I Am is. Everyone, I bet y'all remember that. Don't feel like you have to live out the worldly expectations, because if you're doing the work of God and following Him from the crown down, then you're living up to everything God created you for. Matthew 5:15 says, no one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. When you accept him into your life, you begin to have this radiance that brightens in you, and that is God. So bright that it is visible from the outside. Spread his love endlessly, because that's our job as Christians. It never ends. Let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. Be what a Christian is, a Christ follower that reads the Word of God, does the work of God, and surrounds themselves with the people of God. His work didn't end at camp. In fact, it's still doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. It's spreading like a wildfire because it's spreading like wildfire because he's the match that lit the flame in all of our hearts. Because I feel him working in me and in my life. Thank you, and shine on. Favorite memory was probably when we went to the middle of the cabin and we turned the lights off so it was pitch black in there, and we played hide and seek in the dark. and the only way they could find me was when I did my crazy laugh. And it's like, do you want me to do it? Yeah. Okay, I go. And when you hear that, they'd be like, oh, I found Tiffany.
By the way, Tiffany was a first-time camper at Timberline with us. She'd been to camp in other places, but this is her first year to get to go with us. So we were glad to have Tiffany. Abby, it was your first year at camp as well this year. What was your favorite memory from camp?
The swimming.
The swimming, okay. Did you get to swim in the pool this year?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was something that you got out of the messages at camp?
Like God's glory is like a rainbow.
God's glory is like a rainbow. That's great. Is there anything else you want to share with us? All right, thank you so much. Christine is a veteran camper, and she has gone since she was big enough to be carried to camp by her parents. So she is a pro at this. So Christine, what did you especially enjoy this year at camp as a memory?
Well, it's been since I was very little. I didn't know what it was like, so it was really fun the first time I went, and I wasn't very a good listener when we went to chapel or any of that, but when I got a lot older, I did listen, and then I remembered that I wasn't listening, but now I do.
Yeah. All right. And you want to share something that you got out of camp, or a favorite memory?
Well, the one thing that I remember that when my first time that my parents took me to camp, I always wanted to go there. And it's been a great blessing that I have two great parents that raised money to let me go to camp. And it was really scary that I went to camp since my first time alone, and it felt so lonely. But when Opal came, and she was a very blessing to me, and it's really been great to see you.
For those who didn't know, Opal got to go to camp for her first time, but she's in the balcony because she's not feeling real well today. So she got to go to camp, and I think we gave her camp exhaustion, and along with everything else. It's a true sickness that comes on after camp. If you do camp the right way, you won't come home feeling the same. So this was your first time at camp as well, wasn't it? No, second time. Okay. Sixth. Okay. Never mind. You're a veteran. Veteran in this. Okay. So what was different this year about camp from other years for you?
Well, Pastor Tyler, he was really amazing. His messages were really great. My favorite was Esau and Jacob. He talked about how God gave us privileges, and we gave it away for worldly things.
Yes, he talked about that we eat the stew, but we eat it one bite at a time, right? That we make that trade for those privileges that God's given us, trading it with sin in our life, one bite at a time. So what was your favorite memory from camp this year?
Taking Vivian ziplining.
Taking Vivian zipline. Was that her first time to zipline?
Yeah, she was scared, and she's like, "That was awesome. Let's go again."
You know, that I don't know of anyone who has gotten off the zip line and said, "I'll never do that again." Now, I've seen people who have climbed to the top and turned around before they did it and said, "I'll never do that again." But once they've done it, they're usually a repeat person. So, well, thank you so much. Kinsley, your turn. Kinsley, you are not a new camper either, right? So what did you see at camp this year that you remember to be different, that was a good memory for you, something different? Stick out.
God is always with us no matter what we do.
And what did you get out of the messages this week? Same thing? Okay. What was your favorite thing at camp? Yeah, tell a story. Go ahead. Tell the whole story.
So I was in the line for lunch, and I was talking to these other people, and they turned out to be Aggies too. And we were talking about how Craig needed to get different colored shirts, and we noticed how everyone who worked there, they rode in a little Kia, and it was burnt orange. And in the middle of lunch, I noticed, and I screamed out randomly, Craig has brainwashed them.
That's a pretty funny story. If you can't tell at camp, it's a big deal who your alliances are on that, whether it be A&M or the Longhorns, or for some, not from our church, but for some, they're brainwashed to the OU. All right. Well, go ahead and share with us.
This year we had a big group going, so we all could not ride in the van. I had the privilege to ride with Miss Renee Wamscon. It was a very sweet ride. I got to know her better because we don't get to be in the same group all the time, so that was a sweet ride. At camp, I still went to junior chapel because the kid in me always wants to go to VBS again with Brother Ron, so I can do all the VBS songs again and really finish up VBS, because I think 1 week is not enough for me. But anyway, Brother Rolly Campbell taught that class still, and what's her name? Katie was saying the lesson was about the rainbow, and on the last day, Jesus, no, it's not, Abby is the one that talked about the rainbow. The lesson was about God being like the rainbow. He is the light. That's why we have shine on. And at the end of the lesson, he gave all the children glow sticks, and we switched on the lights, and we had different color glow sticks, and it all glowed so pretty, to where he was telling us that you can be a different color, but still shine for God. So whatever it is that God has given you as a gift, you can use it for God's glory. So thank you everybody who makes it possible for children, our children and children that come on the van to go for this. I think it's a very strong ministry, because when you raise godly children, you raise godly adults. Thank you.
Third and fourth row, y'all come on up. Ryan, you can start this row off. What was your favorite memory from camp?
The fishing.
The fishing, okay. And what was good about the fishing?
The bass fishing is really easy.
Really easy. I guess they have dumb fish there at camp. That's the best you can figure, because they bite pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to be an expert to be able to catch fish. Now, if you were an expert, you could catch the big fish, but you didn't have to be an expert to catch fish. So what was something you got out of the messages?
Brother Tyler was really relatable, and he had stories that we could all relate to, and that I need to respect my parents more.
All right. What did you have as your favorite memory from camp this year?
I like to hang out with my friends.
Okay. And what was something you got out of the messages?
Something I got out of the messages was to be more nice to my friends and family.
All right. Thank you. Josh, by the way, Josh was one of 3 of our guys who led a devotion in the evening in our cabin for our seniors. I led the first night, and then on Tuesday night, Josh led, and on Wednesday night, Ethan Gilbert led, and then on Thursday night, Cody Walker led the devotion for that. So they got to take and invest back into each other in that and let their light shine that way. But Josh, go ahead and share. What was your favorite memory from camp?
My favorite memory is probably the fishing. And I caught 39. Yeah, wait.
Thursday because they were like really relatable, and he talked about like how we need to pick our friends wisely and be more respectful for our parents.
Amen. All right. Malcolm, this was your first year to go with us to camp. What did you think of camp?
Really fun.
Awesome. What was your favorite thing about camp this year? What did you enjoy the most?
My favorite message or my
Well, favorite
fun
activity
thing?
or something. Favorite activity, fun thing.
The zip line and the fishing.
Okay, I was going to say, the reason Malcolm's having a hard time is not because he didn't have fun, but because he had so much fun all over the place that he never sat still. So, I remember, I think it was Wednesday night that I was looking for him, and I said, Malcolm, you want to use my phone and call home? No, I'm good. He was having a great time and wasn't ready to stop to do anything else, but to keep enjoying it. Malcolm, what was your favorite thing you got out of the messages this week?
That it's really important to witness to others, and also I also felt God calling me to or calling me into the ministry. So when I do graduate high school and go into college, it's probably going to be Bible college.
Tyson started off the week as kind of my little assistant for the week. He rode co-pilot for me in the van and did a few things for me while we were on our way to camp, and it went from that to helping with hanging the lights in our dorms and anything else that he was asked. So he was a huge helper this week. But Tyson, what was your favorite thing about camp this year?
Watching Skyla do paintball.
I didn't know Skylar did paintball at camp this year. That's a story I'd like to hear about. So what was so fun about watching Skylar do paintball? Was she really good at it, or was she really bad at it? Did she get hit?
She got hit about 3 times on the last round.
On the last round, okay. Was she hitting other people with the paintballs?
I'm not sure.
But she was fun to watch. Tyson, what was something that you got out of the messages at camp?
Just to follow God and shine on like He does.
Amen. All right. Shannon, I'll just let you take it.
Okay. Like I said, we did have lessons about Jacob and Esau, and he did divide that up 2 times in, the senior chapel. But he did talk about, how Esau just wanted the food, but didn't care about the birthright, whereas Jacob wanted it. But he also talked about when we walk around with an empty soul, that we end up heading to the world's refrigerator to fill up instead of doing what we're supposed to, whereas reading God's Word, serving in our church, and keeping ourselves full with godly people, that we end up going. And then the second part of that one was we tend to trade what God gives us for the devil stuff, basically, like, I think Meredith is saying that, that we wanted to exchange like a blessing of peace that God gives us for a bowl of worry from the devil. We trade out. We think it's easier to do the bowl of worry than it is to have His peace that He gives us. And we try to exchange things. And the ladies' class was great too, because it talked about, Lynetta Bragdon talked about how we can shine within ourselves, and it gave us all these different steps and things to do to shine, what we can do to better ourselves to shine for God, with just in ourselves and start there first. And then she talked about how we could take steps of doing things to help shine for our family, to put our family out there and to be able to shine and be that blessing we need to be within our own family. And then she also talked about how we could shine for others and do things for other people. And with that, it was that she was saying, with that one really, it struck that hospitality is becoming a lost art. And she did say that one of the first people that comes to mind for hospitality was Miss Brenda. Of how anytime they're in the area, she calls us over for anything. If she knows they're there, she invites us over, and she said that she just does whatever, even if it's some fun drink that they're doing, a Dr. Pepper with, a lemon in it or whatever. She includes us and puts that hospitality out there. And we discussed different things of some things that people do that made it neat. And one lady said that starting in July, she invites 4 couples from the church over. Just bring whatever meat you want to throw on the grill. And she said, we provide the sides, and we do that and work our way through the church, just getting to know people. We match up people that would never be together, and it's not that it's a lot of a burden on one person when you do that, but, just to get with other people that is not normally in your group, and to spread and to be around others. And I mean, it was great this year. We had so many new campers that went. A lot of them aren't here, but we did have the van kids, and it was a blessing to be able to see them go. They ended up coming out of their shell by the end of the week, that they were totally different kids than what we took with us. And that was a blessing. And I will say one thing I missed at camp was over.
All right. Are there any of our others that are not in those first 4 rows that would like to share? If you would, you can come on down now if there's any others. Hannah is coming this way. Hannah taught one of our classes this year, and she was asked to do that rather last minute. I think it was during the beginning of Bible School Week that Craig had an opening come up that he needed filled, and Hannah said she would take that. So thank you to Hannah for doing that. But go ahead, you can share.
Okay, so I'm going to be the one person who says I will never do the zip line ever again. I did it my first year of camp, and afterwards I'm like, nah, I'm good. Never again. So now you know somebody who will never do it again. I think one of my favorite memories from camp is I was teaching the 2-4 class, and I was teaching with Brandon Rios, and one of the little kids from his church was there. And we're introducing ourselves and said, I'm Miss Hannah, and he goes, I'm Mr. Brandon, and the little kid from his church goes, you're not Mr. Brandon, you're just Brandon. So all week we referred to him as just Brandon. But I think one of my favorite lessons that I learned through one of the things that he was talking about, that God can take you and use you no matter what you've done. And when I had my devotions with the girls in our dorm, I was talking to them. I said, you can take somebody who came and was raised in a Christian home, and they've done something. I guarantee you, anybody raised in a Christian home has still done something they regret. And you can also take somebody who wasn't raised in a Christian home, and they can tell you stuff they regret. I said, it doesn't matter where you were born. All of us have regrets, and all of us can still be used by God. And, teaching, kind of helping in devotions at night, you still have to go through the lessons and think about them more. And so it helped me to be able to take what I heard during the chapel time and apply it in a different way as well.
Miss Brenda heads up our elementary girls section of our camp. So go ahead, Miss Brenda, share with us.
Oh, we just had the best girls this year. Every year we go, we measure it by the amount of sleep we get, whether they're good or not. And we got the best sleep this year. But they were really good kids. I just want to thank all of you parents. Thank you for your investment in these kids, and have hope. There's a lot of good things they say about you as parents when they're away from you, and I hope you'll be encouraged to keep working with them. In our particular group, we had Brother Campbell as our speaker, and he just really relates to the kids and gets down with them and makes it a lot of fun. But in one session in the morning, we got to go hear Brother Tyler speak, Brother Tyler Prater from Kansas, Liberal, Kansas. And one of the messages that he talked about was about, as Shannon had said, about how vulnerable you are when your heart is empty. And that spoke to me, constant filling. And one of the verses from the Beatitudes talks about, in Matthew 5:6, and it says that blessed are those that are filled with righteousness, because he'll fill you with righteousness if you'll ask him to. And so that was an encouragement to me. And then our granddaughter Bailey was saved this year. And so that was just the icing on the cake for us because she has struggled. And we have been through a lot of valleys with that kid, and we love her so much. And you can't make anybody do anything. But to see God touch their heart and see a genuineness really makes a difference, especially going through a divorce situation with our children. It's hard, and we have a heart for them, and I'm very thankful for what God did there. And for all of those kids that were saved, and I don't think we've listed all their names, but maybe by the end of this we will. But we hope to see them be strong Christians and serve the Lord. And I hope none of you forget what you learned this week, and you come home and apply it and keep shining. I don't have my shirt on, but keep shining.
Not exactly a camper.
Well, you're a 24-hour camper.
Okay. But I did want to take the opportunity to thank the church for trusting us enough to invite us down there to do the chapel on Thursday morning. Cheryl and I were talking on the way there. This is the 20th year that we've done that. This is the 20th time. And it's the first time that it hasn't rained either in Dallas or down there. And we found out why when we got there. When you do a show you call the Living Water Show and there's no water in the chapel. It makes it difficult. There's always some challenge there. There really is. It lets me know there's some resistance to not being there, I guess, from the other side. One of those times it was raining. Taking too much time. One of those times it was raining. We had to weave around a tree and another tree, and I thought, oh, I'm glad they weren't blocking the road. And a third one was across the road. And we're trying to get to camp, and there's a line of cars, and I get out in the pouring rain and start trying to drag it out of the rain. And all these guys come out, all these cars, and we drag it out of the way to get to camp. But, and it's changed from year to year. When I first started, I said I'd never use a rubber chicken in my act. Now a rubber chicken comes out of that box and he's got a foul mouth. Sometimes even a dirty diaper. Point. We look on the outward appearance, God looks on the heart, that's inside. But going way too long. Anyway, thank you so much for trusting us. It's really humbling. And I guess what you don't know is because you invited us there, this is the second year on the way home we've gone to an assisted living location and done a show there. Usually I can say, if you got more questions, go do whatever adult leader. There it's like, if you have questions, you can ask after the show. It's the first time I've ever had an audience stay the entire time while we completely packed, completely out. And Cheryl was getting messages even the next day from there. So anyway, thank you, church.
Well, I'm going to see if I can share with you the names of those who made decisions this week for the Lord. The first decision that was made was Bree. That was Ellie's friend that came with her, a neighbor from her neighborhood that came. And that took place on Tuesday night, I believe. And then Wednesday night, we had 6 that made decisions for the Lord. Miss Brenda shared about Bailey. 2 others that made decisions are Miss Trellis's granddaughters that came this week with us that were able to go. We also had the Essinger's grandson, Caleb, made a decision for the Lord at camp. Johnny Hooten, who rides our van or comes with Josh Solis, made a decision for the Lord. And then Haley Watson made a decision for the Lord as well this week at camp, which is our 7 that made salvation decisions. We had some others who shared privately with me about other things that the Lord was doing in their life and the things that they felt the Lord was leading them to do and to change when they got home. Parents, I hope that they shared those things with you, because part of what Brother Tyler preached about was the fact that when he got to Thursday night, he talked about the walkaway moments and the fact that when you don't have accountability, how easy than it is for us to walk away from a decision that we made. Let me give you a recap real quick of the messages that Brother Tyler gave, and I'll do this briefly. But Monday night, and he shared with us about difference makers all through the week in those evening messages. Monday night he shared from the story of Daniel, and he shared about how that as a young person that you can make a difference, that it's possible for you to make a big difference in the world. But he also shared how important it is that you should make a difference. And that Daniel, the reason that he made a difference was because he had purposed in his heart, long before it came to a point of decision, long before the situation faced him, that he was going to honor God in all that he did. Which is why he took his study seriously. Because he went and used the illustration of the fact that Daniel stood up about the rules about what you should and shouldn't eat, which is probably the boring stuff when it comes to church. We talk about how that it's easy for us to take and look at certain parts of the Bible as boring and not study them and not give attention to them. Whether that be genealogies or it be the book of Numbers and Leviticus that seem a little hard to us at times. And he said that our preparation is the biggest key to being ready for those moments that challenge us. And that if we don't take our study seriously, we won't be prepared for those moments. And he even spent some time emphasizing to us how important it is not just that we listen when it's time that the Bible comes out and that teaching is done, but even the way that we sit when Pastor Ron preaches, the way that we take notes, the way that we give attention to those things are important because it shows that it's important to us and that it helps eliminate some distractions. So that was a challenge that was issued to all of us, was to be careful about how we study the Bible. On Tuesday, he used the life of Moses as he shared that God is not limited by what kind of a life you were born into. God isn't limited by what you did, and God isn't limited by what you left. Because with Moses was born as a Hebrew in a time that the Hebrew boys should have been killed. And God wasn't limited by that. God wasn't limited by that circumstance. God wasn't limited in using Moses by the fact that Moses had a past history of evil when he killed a man. That God forgave him and chose to use him in the future anyway. In fact, he wasn't limited by the fact that Moses said, "But I can't speak." And God said, "That's okay." He said, "I am the I am." And that was what was referenced when Tiffany was talking about how that God makes up for our shortcomings. And God isn't limited by what you left, because Moses left the people that he was intended to lead, and God called him back to it. And so no matter where you are, Brother Tyler Prater preached to us that God isn't limited by those past decisions if you will yield your heart to him in the future, that God can still use you in a powerful way. You may not have any idea what that will look like, but God can still use you. And then on Wednesday, he shared with us the story of Ruth and her life of surrender, and all of the times that her mother-in-law begged and pleaded with her and with Orpah that they would go back and return to their families so that they could have a life, instead of staying with her in a place that had no future that was spelled out for it. And how that eventually Orpah made the decision to walk away from that. But Ruth said, "Where you go, I'll go. Who you serve, I'm going to serve." In fact, she said, "God curse me and kill me if I don't stay with you till the day I die." And it was a commitment of surrender that says, my life is not my own. And that was Brother Tyler's challenge to us, is for us to commit to God for the wherever, the whenever, and the whatever that God calls us to do. And then on Thursday, he talked about those walk-away moments, and he went to John chapter 6 and verse 60 through 69, where it talks about that Jesus spoke to his disciples, more than 12 that were there, and called them to a decision point, and all but those 12 turned and left. And then Peter, our friend Peter, he's the one who says, "Lord, what is there aside from you, because you have the truth?" Was, in summary, what he said at that point. And the commitment there that he asked for was this, that there's going to come a point where it will be easier to walk away than to stay with the commitment that you've already made with the Lord. And the way that you're going to be able to stick with those commitments is by asking other people to bring you to a point of accountability. So in doing that, in our dorm, in the evening, we shared what decisions we had made throughout the week of camp and asked each other to hold us accountable when we get back to church, that we stick with those decisions, which means that it's not always comfortable when someone says, "Hey, are you still taking notes during the messages? What notes did you take this morning?" To hold us accountable, to say, "Hey, did you end that friendship with you-know-who? You decided at camp that wasn't good for you." Those are hard conversations to have, but we were challenged, and we made some of those commitments together. So if you weren't able to be at camp, we can't give you a full picture of camp, but we do our very best tonight to show you what the Lord did through camp. And if you have ever been to camp, this is by far the best camp I've ever been part of. Not just because of our group, but because of the sweet spirit that we have between the churches and the fellowship that we have in working together. It's a blessing to be able to come together with, I think we had 360 people in camp this year, which was a high number for camp, and almost full capacity. And to be able to come together in one place with one focus, to serve the Lord in a way that honors Him and glorifies Him through our week of camp. So thank you for your part in that.
Juniors. At verse 9, that was the question. But who turned on the light? Genesis 1. Right? And so we talked about God said, "Let there be." We talked about He infused a lot of science into chapter 1, verses 1 through 50. We talked about the universe in verse 1, right? We talked about God created time, space, and matter. We talked about energy and light, that light is waves, and energy is in waves. We talked about the whole spectrum of light, from light that's very visible, light that's invisible, and talked about when God turned on the lights. That was great. The second night, what happened to the light? Who turned on the light? The next night, Tuesday night, what happened to the light? The light, the day that the light, what broke out? Remember? And he talked about Christ, God is light, but it says that Jesus is the light of the world. And Jesus was so bright because he was every bit light like God, right? Radiant, that he had to clothe himself in a blanket of flesh around him. And he showed a candle. Remember that? And that he was nailed in flesh, but there was one time. There was one time, John says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So God wrapped up the light, and we, John said, beheld his glory. And he says, I was there when the light broke out. And when was that? On top of the mountain at the Transfiguration. Boom! Right? And he said, well, so John was there, wasn't he? John, Peter, James, and John were on top of the mountain when the light broke out. And then the next night was when the light what's the opposite of breaking out? Left. And it all went dark. And when did that happen? When did the light leave? You weren't even there.
Well, I was on Wednesday, but that was the only day. Other than that, I never left. And on that day, the reason it was the one that left is because all the sin was put on Jesus, and God can't be wrong.
My God, my God. He did that because sin is dark. And our sin is dark. And the light went out. The last night was shine on. When you, ABC, trust the gospel, then you will come. And it was really good. Sister Gwen said, the glow sticks. multicolored, different, and we're all our own person, just like we have a fingerprint or whatever. But no one else can shine like God would have you shine. No one else can shine to the people that God has put in your life. Right? Robin. Different ages when I'm there. Brother Cameron does a great job. Let me just tell you that. We're up on the hill with our juniors, Brendan and I, give ourselves to the juniors at night. I had the boys, and we talked about all this. And Brother Josh said, the seniors. One thing I love about our camp is there's babies there, man. And mamas with babies in strollers, and, adolescent, juniors, teens. And, I know most churches say, well, all the seniors go this week, and then all the juniors that week. That would be a very sad day for me, because we're all together. And what we do, we just get everybody there. Of all ages. We have separate tracks for them, juniors and seniors. But to me, one of the things that makes our camp so unique, and it's always been that way, is we have families. And we get to see each other's grandkids, and we see the babies, and to see the juniors and the seniors interact is incredible. It's just wonderful. And we had 3 band kids, children come. 2 of those were in the dorm. Isaiah, the prophet, slept right near me. On day 1, day 2, day 3, you begin to see them loosen up, join in, and just become part of the group. And that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And so I'm so proud of everybody, and I really, really enjoyed. But you should see, it's like gladiators. These kids, they pull out the Band-Aids, and they're putting Band-Aids on their knuckles. It was today's competition. Gaga ball? Goo-goo for Gaga. And the reason they have their knuckles there is because they're going down and hitting that ball with their hands. Opposite soccer. Soccer, you can't use your hands. Gaga ball, you can't use your feet. It's the social aspect of it, too, for these kids. It is the game, but all the juniors or all the teams, they all get in this corral. And it's kind of a social hub. So if you ever want to look for a kid, usually go to one of the Gaga pits. Just go to the pit, and there they are. But they love it so much, and Lord willing, Rodgers is going to have their own Gaga pit. So we'll see how that goes. But interesting how camp changes. Thank you, church, and God bless you for your investment. How do you measure ministry? How do you measure this? You don't. Only in heaven one day. I mean, it's good to hear their testimonies, but you're really not hearing what a lot of it happened. Well, some of that's just good, but change in their hearts. We just have a huge investment in eternity. Thank you, church. Anybody? God bless you for being here tonight. It's different. And we did miss you all.
I missed you guys.
We missed you. I still say these kids, it says, almost all of my life, minus just a few years, young and old, I've been at camp. Now, really? Really? And I think I like it better than ever for different reasons. Thank you so much. Let's all stand with you.